Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon and we're going to do a little bit of video game news here. It would appear that Japanese gamers are abandoning the PS5. They're abandoning the PlayStation 5 and buying Xboxes and Switches. Instead, they're also suggesting that other gamers buy PCs instead of the PS5, and there are numerous reasons for this. We're going to look into this situation a little bit more. Just so you know, guys, we are trying to get clownshishtv.com off the ground. We want to be a pretty balanced, based pop culture media site, like they used to have about 10, 15 years ago. That's what we're going for. And I got to give a hat tip to Black Sage D, who sent me some links on the situation with Sony in Japan. I really hadn't been paying attention. We actually have a PS5, but I don't play it very much. Squid King's playing Earth Defense Force 6 on it right now, the Japanese version. Don't ask. He's playing that right now, but I personally could care less about the PS5. It doesn't really have a lot of games that interest me too much, and it clearly is a system that is more designed for Western audiences, and we're going to see that Japan feels like Sony has kind of abandoned them, so they're abandoning the system. So before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Hit the subscribe button. YouTube is up to shenanigans, so if you want to see more content, make sure you like and subscribe the video, please. And also check out clownshishtv.com. Again, we're trying to get this site off the ground. It's doing pretty well so far. We got some new features here, chat features, and the ability to react to different articles. We have some more stuff coming here soon. Anyway, yeah, Japanese gamers are abandoning the PlayStation 5. They are. We're talking about the PlayStation brand declining, and we've talked about this before, that it really does not mean as much to Japanese gamers as it used to, and it's becoming very, very obvious that Japanese gamers are turning away from the PlayStation. Now, part of it is this inflation price hike, which we'll talk a little bit about later. They're going to raise the price of the PS5 in certain territories, and gamers are like, oh, hell no. As if it wasn't hard enough to find a PS5 already, now they're going to have to pay more for it. And they're like, we could just buy an Xbox. We could just buy a Switch. We could just buy a cheap gaming PC. We don't need a PS5, especially if you guys are going to pull some shenanigans, right? So here is, let's see, this is coming from Whitcomb Peggy, Japanese PlayStation console global market share. You can see how the PlayStation has declined. It's worldwide total of units and the Japanese total percentage. PS1, 102.49 million units, and 18.8 of those, or 18% share, was Japan. PS2, it was pretty similar, but you can see the decline. 155 million PS2s, which I believe it's one of, if not the most successful console of all time. We still have our original PS2 from 2000. 14% were Japanese players. PS3, 87.4 million, 11.8%. Now we're getting down to 117.2 million for the PS4. Only 8% were Japanese players. Now we're down to 21.7 million and only 1.72 million PS5s in Japan. Again, about 8%. And again, this has been going on for a while now. That the Big Blue, and this is was this coming from Windows Central, talking about how the Big Blue, Sony, has moved toward Western gaming, Western sensibilities, Western AAA titles like The Last of Us Part 2. That's what Sony wants to be. And Sony, at least the video game division, has been a pretty, progressive, woke company. And we've seen a lot of ridiculous censorship and virtue signaling and all of that. And Japanese gamers just, they aren't going to have it. They're not having it. They also shut down the Japan studio last year. I think it was last year. And again, this is another signal to Japanese gamers that they don't matter, that Sony is interested in Western money. So they're going to Xbox instead, which is so ironic because the Xbox was the Western console and the Sony was the Japanese console. And Nintendo was the kiddie console, and now Sony is the console that's being accused of censorship. So weird. So here we have this Twitter user. What's going on in Japan? PlayStation brand is a joke here. This is a translation, of course, that many Japanese people like myself are happy with Nintendo and PC and the PS4. Their attack on Japanese developers and censorship is also another issue, but this generation Sony prices are ridiculous and a lack of strong Japanese titles. Again, they shut down the Japan studio. They're not really making games that appeal to Japanese audiences, and a lot of the games that are coming out are being censored. And so a lot of people are just going to Nintendo. I mean, this is just freaking bizarro world. I mean, it used to be that Nintendo censored the content heavily, that Sony brought out games relatively intact that appealed to Japanese gamers. A lot of games, like we got Final Fantasy VII. Well, we missed several Final Fantasies here in the US because Square didn't feel that Western audiences were ready for Final Fantasy, 5 and 3 and whichever else, we missed. So we renumbered Final Fantasy, and then 7 dropped, and it was like, wait, we missed like 4 Final Fantasy games. What the hell happened here? But, we got a lot of very Japanese content, PS1, PS2 era, and a lot of the stuff wasn't censored, and here we are. Right now, the Japanese are turning their noses up at the PS5. Players are complaining about the recently announced inflation price hike. So let's talk about that. Forbes has an article, Xbox and Nintendo respond to Sony's unprecedented PS5 inflation price hike. So when most people can't even find a PS5, they're going to jack the price. This is coming from Sony. We're seeing high global inflation rates as well as adverse currency trends impacting consumers and creating pressure on many industries. No, this is about getting as much money per console as you can get because you know that the console is not selling as well as you were hoping for. Based on these challenging economic conditions, Sony Interactive Entertainment has made the difficult decision to increase the recommended retail price of PlayStation 5 in select markets across Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia Pacific, Latin America, and Canada. The price increase is different across all the mentioned regions, but generally it works out to about $50 more on both digital and disc models. So global inflation is affecting not just Sony and PlayStation, but everyone. So naturally, everybody else is going to follow suit. No. The only hardware we've seen push up its price for vaguely similar reasons is Meta and its Quest headsets. Nintendo has previously said it has no plans to raise Switch prices, and now when asked for a response to Sony's move, Microsoft was pretty unequivocal about what was happening with the Xbox. We're constantly evaluating our business to offer fans great gaming options. Our Xbox Series S suggested retail price remains at $299. So Nintendo issued a fresh comment on how they're also not raising prices due to inflation or other issues. Nintendo confirms there are no plans to raise the price of the Nintendo Switch. So what are these global supply issues? Because wouldn't they affect everybody? Yeah, you would think. You would think they would affect everybody. But nah, this is just Sony. This is just Sony, right? People making comments that you can go buy a cheap gaming PC. This Japanese user's like, I'm starting to think it's okay to let PS5 Kun die like this and learn from it as an example of how PS5 died without taking serious measures to resell it or rebrand it. Seems to be a demand for a cheap gaming PC. I've never seen one for sale. They're talking about the Steam, the new portable Steam, which I mean, that might work. I don't know. I mean, you can buy a decent-ish gaming PC for under $1,000. You can buy a decent-ish gaming PC for under $700. You can build one yourself. I think I built my daughter's it was under $1,000, I think, and it's actually a pretty decent system. If we'd got the same system from retailer, we probably would have paid $1,800, $1,900 for it. I'm a PS user from PS3. Regarding the price increase, it's only a factor that increases the number of resellers. And even after a year since release, it hasn't become popular at all, so I'm giving up. The number of people who say it's faster to buy a PC is increasing. I think the position of the PlayStation is already in danger. Yeah, and censorship too. Censorship, can't find the machine. They're jacking the prices of the machine. They're not making games for Japanese consumers. Why the hell would you bother with this system? There's some backlash over Final Fantasy 16. It's supposed to be exclusive to PlayStation, at least for the first 6 months. And people in Japan are already demanding a PC version of it. They don't want to play it on a PlayStation 5. They want a PC version. So Xbox is benefiting greatly from this. With the price increase, consumer dissatisfaction, and these supply chain issues, it would appear the Xbox is making waves in Japan. The Xbox Series has now sold more than double the number of units as the Xbox One. The Xbox Series X and S is outselling the PS5 in Japan as Sony hammered by supply issues. No, that's not the only reason. People are basically turning their nose up at PlayStation. You know, PlayStation has abandoned Japan. Japan is abandoning the PlayStation. But they're selling Xboxes like crazy, which is, you know, as somebody who's been a gamer for a very long time, Xbox was traditionally the Western console. You know, it was like the next generation Atari. It was like, yeah, it didn't really make much of an impact in Japan, but now they've sold over 300,000 units in Japan as of, 2 days ago? The X, 144,000. The Xbox Series S, 157,000. Here's another Japanese gamer. I bought an Xbox Series X last week. There's still some purchase conditions, so you can buy a Series S, software peripherals, and you can pay with cash. Other than that, the conditions were kind. Buy a headset later. I should have made a flight sim. All right, peripherals. I think they're talking about peripherals. Anyway, the Switch has also benefited from Sony's failure. Switch games dominate the Japanese sales chart. Top 10 estimated software sales. The top 10 on Famitsu normally, almost always that I check, it's dominated completely by Switch titles. You know, the Switch is huge. PC games are huge. The Xbox is gaining traction. It's not a supply chain issue. You know, Sony, it's not a supply chain issue. This is all on you. You had a Japanese audience. You tossed them away, chasing Portland, you know, chasing LA, chasing Brooklyn, and you're going to get what you deserve, which is you're probably going to come in dead last in this generation console wars. I don't hear people talking as much about the PS5. Again, we have one. It's okay. It's all right. There's nothing like absolutely amazing. There's no killer app for this thing, and a lot of people have just moved on. They're like, well, I can't get one. They cost too much. If you can get one, the games are so-so, and they're censoring everything. Or I can go buy a Switch for $200. I can go buy a gaming PC for $1,000. I can go buy an Xbox. So pretty interesting. It's you know, all it takes is one miscalculation, huge miscalculation, to lose the market share. Ask Atari how that worked out for them. Ask Sega how that worked out for them. And Sony may decide at some point. I mean, they're still working on the PlayStation 6. But they might decide at some point that it's just not worth it to do consoles anymore. You know, I mean, they have a lot of other business ventures. They're doing fine in their other segments. They might be like, yeah, it's not really worth it to us to do video games anymore. So whatever, we'll still, you know, churn out some software, something. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Pretty interesting stuff, though. Gonna wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.